Resourceful Designer, episode 92, Balancing Your Design Life with Your Personal Life.
Welcome to the Resourceful Designer Podcast, offering solutions to streamline your graphic and web design business so you can get back to designing. And now, your host. He hosted 5 other podcasts before starting this one, Mark DeCote.
Welcome to the podcast. Now, in case I don't tell you this enough, I think you're awesome. Yep, I really do. I want to thank you for tuning in. Whether this is your first time checking out the podcast, or this is a couple of episodes in for you, or if you've listened to every podcast so far, I think you're awesome, and I thank you for tuning in as I try to help with your graphic design business. It's a long, struggling road, and I've been doing it for a while. I've been in this business for, 28 years now? 12 of which I've been running my own business. So I'm just sharing a little bit of the knowledge that I've gained over the years with you. Now let me tell you, it's been a good week for me so far. My arms aren't itching as much as they were last week, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to listen to last week's episode. But I want to tell you of a small mishap I had this week. It's kind of funny, actually. On Monday, a client sent me a request to just do some minor updates to their website. There was some pricing changes. They have an application form on there with some pricing, and they wanted some changes made to it. So like I always do anytime I update a website, is I put the website in maintenance mode. Now, I did that because I have a plugin on the website called Coming Soon Page and Maintenance Mode, and it's a plugin by SeedProd, which, by the way, was part of my WordPress checklist that I talked about in episode 89 of Resourceful Designer, where I talked all about checklists. It was one of the plugins I mentioned for my WordPress website setup checklist that you can get if you want by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/WP checklist. And that's all the plugins and everything I do every time I set up a WordPress website. But anyways, so I went to the client's website, I put it in maintenance mode, and what that means is the website is closed off to everybody but me. I can see the website and I can see everything I'm doing to it, but any visitor that comes to the website sees a special page I put up that says the website is under maintenance, please check back soon. Well, I went through, I made all the updates, I checked everything, and as I said, I can see the website, so I checked everything and made sure that all the updates are made, and I even emailed my client to say, everything's all done. The changes have been made. Please let me know if there's any mistakes. And my client sent back an email saying that they were on the road traveling and they would only be able to check it at a later time. Well, you might be able to tell where this is going. It wasn't until late on Tuesday that all of a sudden it clicked on me. I went into another website and I saw some plugins needed updating. So I went in, and when I was updating plugins, I noticed the Coming Soon Page and Maintenance Mode plugin, and it clicked that I never turned off maintenance mode on that other website. So I quickly loaded that website up, turned off maintenance mode, made the website live again for the general public. But the funny thing is I never heard anything. My client never got back to me. Nobody mentioned to me that, hey, what's happening with the website? Why is it down? So crisis averted. The website's up and running. The prices have been changed, and hopefully my client's happy and is none the wiser. So that was a little mishap I had this week. But on the other hand, I had some really good response from some designs I sent out for proofs. I actually had 3 proofs that went out this week, 1 logo and 2 podcast artworks, and all 3 of them came back with not a single change or revision they wanted. So, I mean, that doesn't happen very often. For it to happen 3 times in 1 week, hey, I'm giving myself a good pat on the back because the clients love those artworks. But that's kind of the week I've been having so far. Now, I hope you're having a great week. And if so, share it in the Facebook group. Actually, I asked a question this week in the Facebook group, just saying, what sort of projects are you working on this week? And there was lots of really great responses in it. Stuff like Kate saying that she's finishing off a rather large website. Eric's working on a branding guide. Brian has a few different branding projects he's working on this week. Nina has a few things, including 2 annual reports. Those are always fun to do. And so on and so on. So anyways, great conversation going on there. Lots of designers doing lots of different things. It's always fun to see. So I hope you have some interesting projects going on this week. And if you want to share in the Facebook group and you're not already a member, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/group, which will redirect you to the page on Facebook that'll allow you to join. And please answer the 3 questions that'll pop up. It doesn't matter what you answer. As long as you answer them, I will let you into the group. If you don't answer them, then I take a good look at your profile. And if you don't show in your profile that you are into graphic design, then I just decline the invitation. I've declined some people. I don't know why they're asking to join the group, because I look at all the other groups that they're members of, and none of them have to do with anything creative or artistic or design-wise, and nothing on their Facebook profile leads me to believe that they would be a good member for the group. So, and of course, because they didn't answer the questions, I simply decline their request. So if you do ask to join, make sure you answer the questions. It's the easiest way to be allowed into the group where you can join into some great conversations like this. And now, as always, I want to share it's a tip of the week this week, not really a resource, although I might share a couple of little resources here with you. My tip of the week is, if you do web design, specifically WordPress web design for your clients, I highly suggest you somehow turn on some sort of 2-factor authentication. Now, what this does is it really, really beefs up the website security. Now, if your clients have access to the website, you will have to explain this process to your client and get them hooked up as well. But what 2-factor authentication does is anytime you go in to log into the website, once you put in your username and your password, it then asks you for an authentication code. Now, the way I do it is I have mine set up with iTheme Security Pro, which I've mentioned many times on the podcast before. I install it. Actually, funny enough, it's also one of the plugins that I install on every website, and it's part of my checklist that you can download. But iTheme Security Pro, amongst other things, it allows 2-factor authentication. And it uses what's called TOTP, which stands for time-based one-time password. Now, I know technically that should be TBOTP, but for some reason they call it TOTP. So it's time-based one-time password. So every time I go to log into a client website, I put in the username, I put in the password, and when I hit return, another screen comes up and it says, please enter the validation number. Then I would go to my phone, and I have an app on my phone. It's actually Google Authenticator. Now, there are other apps you can use. There's Authy, there's a free OTP Authenticator, and there's another one called, I think it's pronounced Twofer, which is TOOPHER. I've never used any of those. I've always used Google Authenticator. And I open up the app, and what it does is it shows me a bunch of validation codes, one for every website that I have 2-factor authentication on. So almost all my client websites have this. I'll scroll to the right website, and there will be a number that's displayed there. Now, the thing is the number is only good for about 60 seconds. And after 60 seconds, the number changes. So I have to put it into the website before it expires, and then it will allow me access to the website. And if I don't put it in fast enough, and you can see on the app, the number starts off blue, and then it turns red when time's running out. Well, if I wait for the time to run out, and then I try putting that number in, it'll tell me that's an invalid number. So this is a great way for you to create extra security, because nobody can hack into the website without having this validation number. And the only way to have the validation number is for it to be set up through the website and the app on the phone. You need to already have access to the website in order to set up the authenticator. So this is just a long explanation to say that if you do websites for your clients and you want to really secure them, find some way. Now, I'm sure there are others. As I said, I use iTheme Security Pro. Now, I don't know of any other ways to do this. I'm sure there are, but this is the way I've been doing it for years, and it's always worked for me. I turn it on in the settings for iTheme Security Pro, and then it's just a matter of a QR code pops up on the screen. I hold up my iPhone, turn on the app, say I want to add a new one, show it the QR code, and everything's done. Everything syncs together. And now I know that that website is that much more secure, because a regular hacker can't get in without having this verification code. And when they see that it has 2-factor authentication turned on, they won't even bother trying anymore. So I highly recommend you try this out with your clients. Now, as I said, there are many different ways to do this, but if you are interested in iThemes Security Pro, I do have an affiliate link with them. If you visit resourcefuldesigner.com/iThemes and sign up, I will get a small commission. But as I said, I've been using it for years and it's never let me down. And don't worry if you're driving or anything and you might not remember this. Simply visit resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 92 and the links will be in the show notes. And now, balancing your design life with your personal life. Face it, being a home-based graphic designer is challenging enough work-wise without having to deal with the personal life that surrounds us each and every day. I mean, after all, you're working from home. Not only do you have to deal with clients and deadlines, but you also have to deal with the family and the friends and everybody who thinks for some reason that, hey, since they're working at home, they must be available when they need you. So it's, your cousin, your brother, your whoever who thinks, hey, I need a hand or I need something. Mark's at home. I'll just call him or that. They don't take it seriously that even though you're at home, you are at work. So working from home and balancing these things is a challenge in the least. And you see what the problem is. The thing is when you work from home, you're not only always at home, but you're always at work. And keeping that work-life balance is never an easy task. But I do have 4 tips that I want to share with you to help you maintain some sort of balance. At least there are things that have helped me, and I know they've helped others. So here goes. Tip number 1, set some boundaries. It doesn't matter what your family thinks. It doesn't matter what your friends think. You are at work, even though you are at home. They might not realize it, but it's the truth. And you need to set some boundaries for them and ask them to respect you and your workday. If you were working at an office building somewhere in a design department or you're working for an agency, they wouldn't just drop in at any time unannounced. They wouldn't be calling you at all times of the day to ask stuff that's unrelated to work. Well, the same respect should be given to you, even though you are working from home. So this means asking them to limit phone calls to only things that are really important. None of these pop-in visits just to see what's going on and to hang out for a bit. No more social nudges on whatever social platform of the day they're using, trying to get your attention. And no more asking you, hey, do you want to come out? You want to do something? You're just sitting at home anyways. Why don't you come out? Teach them that you have these boundaries that they need to abide by, that they need to follow. That when you are working, you are doing exactly that, working. It doesn't matter if you're at home. So set your boundaries when it comes to family and friends. Now, tip number 2 is divide your space. Now, I talked about having your own workspace back in episode 88, A Designer's Home Office Essentials. And I'm going to talk about it again today because it's that important. When you're working from home, it's imperative that you have a workspace that's separate from your living space. Your dining room table isn't good enough. I mean, unless your dining room table is only used for your workspace and everybody in your family knows about it. But that's not an ideal situation. What you should have is a separate room, one with a door, preferably, set aside as your office space. So create an office in some room in the side, or if that's not possible, section off part of a room and use it specifically for your design business, your design studio, or whatever, your office, whatever you want to call it. Set aside a specific spot that is only used for that, not multi-purpose, only used for that space. Now, this is especially important if you have children in the house, because having a dedicated workspace inside your home or your apartment or your condo or wherever, having a dedicated workspace will accomplish 2 things. A, whenever you enter that space, you'll know you're at work. You'll instantly have that work mindset where you can focus on that project at hand, devote all your creativity, blind out the rest of the world. Everything else is gone. You're focused. You're designing, you're being creative, you're in your element. And then when you get up and you leave that workspace, you'll know you're no longer at work. It's the same thing as if you were working at an office or an agency. When you're there, you know you're there to work. When you leave at the end of the day, you know work's done, work's over until the next day. Well, the same thing happens if you have a dedicated workspace in your home. When you're there, you're working. When you've gone, you're not working. The second thing that'll happen when you have a dedicated workspace is your family and friends will learn to respect that space and your time. If you're sitting in your living room with your laptop on your lap, your family has no way of knowing if you're actually working or if you're simply just checking out the latest gossip on some social media platform. Unless you tell them, oh, I'm working now. And then they're going to say, well, here I am. I'm in the living room. I'm watching TV or I'm doing this and you're working. Well, you're right there. Why can't I talk to you or do anything like that? It doesn't work out as well. But if you go to your designated workspace, there's no question about it. You are at work. And the thing is even young kids can be taught not to disturb mommy or daddy when they are in their office. Now, this is doubly so if you do have a door that you can close, and then it's like a really good statement. When the door is closed, don't disturb. And even young kids can be taught that. I know mine were when I first started working from home. Now, mine were super young. I forget the ages. My daughter was like 6 or 7, and my son was 9 or 10 when I started. But they knew if the door was closed. Now, I have what's called a French door, which is a door and it has all window panes in it. So you can see into my office when the door is closed. And they would be able to see me. And if I turned around, I could see them. But they knew that if the door is closed, dad's working and he's not to be disturbed. So that is tip number 2 with balancing your design life and your personal life, is to divide your home space into your living area and then that small dedicated space for your office. Now, if you can have a room to itself, all the better. But if that doesn't work, take a corner of the room, put a desk and say, that's daddy's or mommy's office or husband and wife's or whatever. It's your office space. And when you're there, you're working. And when you're not, then you're free game for the rest of them. Now, tip number 3 in balancing your design life and your personal life and your family life is take breaks. If you were working in an office or if you were working at an agency, you would remember. If you didn't remember, you would be told to take your breaks, go on your lunch. You would be given a fixed time. You'd either have 30 minutes for lunch, an hour for lunch, and you would be taking it every day. Well, the same thing should be happening when you're working from home. Don't forego these perks just because you're at home and you have nobody to be accountable for. I mean, sometimes when you work in isolation, it can be a distraction in itself. I mean, I'm guilty of this. There have been many days where my wife would get home at the end of the day and I realize, what? It's dinner time and I never even had lunch. I didn't even realize where the time had went. Or she would call me and say, I'm going out for lunch. I'm going to such and such a store. Is there anything I should pick up? And I'll look at the time and I'll go, lunch? I didn't realize it was lunch. I still thought it was early morning. It's just sometimes when we get into that groove, time can fly and we don't even realize it, especially when we're busy and we have a lot of stuff to work on. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter how busy you are. What's important is that you take those breaks. Stop for lunch. Stop for a snack. Stop simply just to get up, walk around, stretch. Get out of the house if you can. Take your dogs for a walk. They'll appreciate it. Trust me. Go stand on your front porch, your back porch, your balcony, just outside your door. Breathe in some of the fresh outside air. Or maybe it's not so fresh wherever you are, but still, it's a change of scenery. If you need to, go out and grab a coffee at the local coffee shop if that's your thing. But taking breaks is good for you both physically as well as mentally. Physically, it gets your blood flowing. It gets your muscles moving, your joints lubricated. But mentally, it clears your head and it helps with that creativity. Changing your scenery, looking at something, taking your eyes off the screen are all ways to get those creative juices flowing again. So when you do get back, you're invigorated and you want to keep going. So taking breaks is an essential part of balancing that design life with that personal life. Now, the last thing I want to talk about on this topic is simply to enjoy family time. Family time is important. And it doesn't matter if family time means that it's with your parents because you still live at home. Maybe you're going to school or you just graduated school and you haven't moved out yet. Or for whatever reason, family time could be time spent with your parents. Maybe it's time spent with your boyfriend or girlfriend if you're living with them. Or if you're married, maybe you have kids, family time is valuable with them as well. It's important that you spend time with the people that are important in your life. I mean, that's one of the perks of working from home is that you can work at any time of the day. There's no fixed time. But one of the drawbacks of working from home is that you can work at any time of the day. There's no fixed time. And it's very tempting to hunker down and spend as much time as you can on that big project. You've got a deadline coming. Well, you know what? I could spend all evening and all night working on this. But when you do that, if you do have family and you do have a home life, they are being neglected and they won't appreciate it. So you have to take time and enjoy the family time because it's not healthy to do otherwise. If you ignore everybody in your life just because you're working, there can be some resentment that builds with loved ones, with spouses, with kids. You have to set yourself some boundaries when it comes to this. You need to leave your office space and live a life outside of your design life. Myself, I've set my hours. I work 9 to 5, just like I was working at an agency or some office building somewhere. I work 9 to 5. And I suggest you set some sort of hours like that too. Set your business hours. These are the hours that you are going to work. And the trick behind this is to let your clients know what these boundaries are. Maybe you have clients in different time zones or in different places around the world. Well, I guess that does fall under time zones, but wherever they are, they might work at different times than you. You might be getting ready for bed as they're getting up to start their day. You need to clearly define to them what hours you are working, when you can be reached by email, by phone, or by whatever. And set the boundaries of when you cannot be reached or when you will not be responding to anything they send. If they want to send you an email or something after hours, by all means, but let them know that you will not be responding until your next workday. I mean, yes, there will be times that you will need to burn the midnight oil. I mean, we are designers. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. And being a home-based designer makes it very, very convenient. If you worked at a design studio or an office somewhere, it's not the easiest thing to do unless you brought work home with you. You might not have access to the building and to your workstation if you had inspiration hit you at 11:30 at night. But being at home makes it very easy. But doing that sort of thing should really be an exception to the rule and not a regular occurrence, because it really does affect those around you when you work at all hours and every hour. And even if you do end up burning the midnight oil or working whatever time outside your fixed work hours, that's fine. We're allowed. I mean, as I said, it's one of the perks of being a home-based designer. But there's no reason for your clients to know that you are doing that. They don't need to know what time of day, because then it becomes useful information to them and not necessarily to you. If they know that you regularly work at 11:30 at night, what's to stop them from contacting you or reaching out to you and saying, oh, I've got this one more thing. I need it done by the end of the day, knowing darn well that you work regularly at 11 o'clock, so there's no big deal. You'll be able to get it done. No, I know my clients, they never know when I'm working on something, unless it's some sort of project that they contact me and I'll say, well, I'll get on it right away and I'll get it and send it to them. Then they know I just worked on it. But for the most part, my clients don't know if I'm working on something first thing in the morning, late in the afternoon, in the evening, or past midnight. It's all happened, but I never let them know. And I don't want them to know. And I suggest you do the same. It'll help keep your sanity in dealing with clients, especially if you set boundaries. I could have named this episode Boundaries because there's so many boundaries I've been talking about. But when it comes to clients, set those boundaries. And then when it comes to you, set those boundaries for yourself. If you've got a family, especially if you have kids, you want to spend time with your kids. You want to spend time with your spouse. You want to spend time with your parents, with your loved ones, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever it is. Set some boundaries for yourself. And at certain times, it doesn't matter how important or how involved the project is, step away, get up, leave that office space of yours and go spend time with your loved ones. Because you know what? The project's still going to be there when you get back. And it's not like that brilliant creative idea you had will be gone. You'll still be able to implement it. If you need, scratch down on a piece of paper a few notes to remind you what to do the next day. But make sure you live your own life. Balance that work life and personal life. So there you have it. Set boundaries with family and friends. Define your workspace. Learn to take breaks. And be sure to enjoy your life outside of your design business. If you can remember these 4 simple things, then you will be a much healthier and a much happier designer. Now, I would love to know what you do to balance your design life from your personal life. Please leave me a comment in the show notes for this episode by visiting resourcefuldesigner.com/episode 92. Now, I'm a little pressed for time this week. I've got a few projects I'm working on, so I'm going to skip the question of the week. But I would love to get yours. I know my mailbag is starting to get low again. Every time I mention it's getting low, I get 1 or 2 questions in. So I'm kind of hoping that by saying this, I'm going to get some of yours. If you have a question that you've been itching to ask, please visit resourcefuldesigner.com/feedback, fill out that form and ask your question, and I'll cover it on a future episode of the podcast. Now, before I go, I want to share another great iTunes review I received. This one came in from S. Bultman from the USA. It says, super useful. The way Mark brings you into the life of an independent graphic designer is super helping and inspiring. He goes deeply into the issues we deal with, answering the questions that plague our minds as we work away alone. He has created a community with this podcast, and through it, we all know we can do this, and we are not in this alone. Thanks, Mark. Well, thank you very much, S. Bultman. I love these reviews. I love reading them. I love sharing them with you, and I would love to get even more. If you would like to leave a review for the podcast, giving me an honest opinion of what you think of the show, visit resourcefuldesigner.com/iTunes, which will redirect you to the Resourceful Designer page in iTunes in your country where you can leave your review. Now, I want to remind you of this week's tip of the week, which is 2-factor authentication, an easy and very secure way of blocking hackers from accessing your clients' websites. My method is using iThemes Security Pro, which you can acquire through my affiliate link at resourcefuldesigner.com/iThemes. Now, I want to thank everyone who is supporting the podcast through Patreon. Coming very soon will be a special podcast just for Patreon members, with behind-the-scenes phone calls and conference calls with fellow designers discussing everyday happenings in a design business. So if that sounds interesting to you, head on over to resourcefuldesigner.com/Patreon, that's Patreon, and become a supporter for as little as $1 per month. So thank you very much for tuning in again this week. As I said at the beginning, I think you're awesome, and I do really appreciate you. Join me in the Facebook group. You can also like the Facebook page by visiting facebook.com/resourcefuldesigner, or follow me on Twitter @resourcefuld. Until next time, I am Mark DeCote, wishing you all the best with your graphic design business, and as always, reminding you to stay creative.
Thanks for listening to the Resourceful Designer podcast at resourcefuldesigner.com.